Very often, the mothers themselves exclude fathers from more intense involvement in the lives of their children, guarding jealously this area of responsibility which they view as uniquely theirs. A Barbadian researcher, Christine Barrow, reports considerable sexual antagonism in Caribbean families because of the perceptions men and women have about each other. Women see men as authoritarian, dishonest, irresponsible, and unreliable, while men consider women to be calculating, grasping, greedy, and materialistic, the embodiment of Eve, Delilah, and Jezebel, the trinity of treachery. Among younger family groups, however, fathers are increasingly observed taking their children to school, to the hospital, and participating in their care and nurture. This involvement may well be linked to the fact that their female partners, who have greater economic options and who are aware of the increasing educational and occupational opportunities open to them, have become more assertive in establishing a true partnership in terms of childcare and nurture with their spouses. That these partnerships are not necessarily marital ones is puzzling, since Jamaicans are very religious and are aware that the Church does not recognize common law or visiting unions and also considers such relationships as living in sin. It is estimated that 70% of Jamaicans live in common law or visiting unions, and in light of this, it is reasonable to assume rejection of Christian marriage as part of their lifestyle. Reverend Dr. Vivian Panton has recently challenged the non-acceptance of common law unions by the Church. He is of the view that the Church is missing a golden opportunity to recognize a family pattern which is indigenous to the Jamaican people and which should not be considered immoral or irresponsible, and also that this opportunity should be seized in order to minister to and assist persons in these unions to participate eventually in a legal marriage contract. The last decades of the 20th century have been characterized by rapid, complex, and often confusing change. Change in how things are perceived, how things are done, what things are valued, what things persist. This rapid change has created uncertainty, ambiguity, and conflict in the minds of people who have been prepared for a world in which change occurred at a pace which made life fairly stable and predictable. The changes which have to be faced have generated many controversial issues, challenged existing values, spawned new survival strategies and coping behaviors, and demand that individuals be more flexible, more adaptable, and more resilient. Much of the change has been accompanied by behaviors which are viewed negatively by the society at large, and Jamaicans protest the indiscipline in society, the violence, the lack of ethical and moral values, the emergence of a me generation whose members ignore the rights and feelings of others, who have little or no social conscience, and who have been accused by Burchell Taylor in the 1992 GraceKennedy Foundation lecture of creating a subculture of flagrant materialism where money and property are the ultimate determinants of all values. These are seen as symptoms of a level of social instability which threatens family and community life, and indeed the whole fabric of Jamaican society. The paradox is that while much of this social instability has been attributed to the breakdown of traditional institutions, especially home and family, these same institutions are increasingly being called upon to be the major restabilizing influences. Yet it is true to say that a wide spectrum of change agents, including the rapid pace of technological invention with all its implications, have contributed to an instability which is worldwide. In pre-modern traditional society, the family was not only the social core unit, but the basic unit in the economy as well. It had total responsibility for educating the children, organizing the work related to feeding and maintaining the household, and also for caring the elderly. This has changed over the years, and parents no longer assume total responsibility for the socialization of their children. Professional providers, teachers, ministers of religion, doctors, nurses, community workers, counselors, sports coaches, youth leaders, and psychologists have all become part of the socialization process, and the ties between parents and children have weakened. As the family unit became smaller, it became a highly specialized institution, providing emotional support and refuge from an impersonal and increasingly competitive world, and still assuming responsibility for socializing the new generation into the attitudes, values, and traditions necessary for continuity in the society. A three-point union status classification developed by researchers George Roberts and Sonia Sinclair in 1978 is now widely used to describe the existing patterns. The categories are married, where a man and woman are legally united and share the same residence; common law, where a man and woman are not legally united, but they share a sexual union and a common residence; and visiting, where the man and woman share a sexual relationship, but they are not legally united, nor do they share a common residence. Features of family organization which are characteristic of Jamaican and Caribbean families and which have remained stable over time include the dominant role of women in households, the marginality and irresponsibility of men, the high incidence of children born out of wedlock, and the prevalence of non-legal childbearing family formation. These features have been considered deviant because they do not conform to the Western European pattern of family organization, and the term matrifocal has been used to describe the dominant Caribbean family pattern. The characteristic features of Caribbean families have been variously explained by anthropologists. On the one hand, they are considered to be the result of the harsh and brutal conditions of slavery, which prevented the formation of close family ties. And on the other, they are seen as the retention of features of West African tradition and culture, which have persisted despite the experience of slavery. The stability of these patterns over time suggests that the existing forms of family are functional responses to economic factors such as poverty, unemployment, and other adverse conditions. The matrifocal family not only provides a level of flexibility for women in residential, kinship, and mating patterns, but also permits adaptability in the face of economic change. Very often, women prefer not to establish permanent or semi-permanent relationships with men. Single-parent households also result from death or separation, and in marital unions, divorce. A number of single professional women are also either adopting a child or are electing to have and rear a child without the physical or financial support of the father, and this creates very special challenges. Women, while accepting the absence of their male partners from the household, build strong supportive networks with their close relatives, neighbors, and friends. And this kinship network very often extends beyond the household, community, and even the country. The family therefore includes members who are spatially separated but who share emotional and psychological ties, and who seek and can be depended upon for financial and other support in times of crises. It is estimated that 70% of Jamaicans live in common law or visiting unions, and in light of this, it is reasonable to assume rejection of Christian marriage as part of their lifestyle. Reverend Dr. Vivian Panton has recently challenged the non-acceptance of common law unions by the Church. He is of the view that the Church is missing a golden opportunity to recognize a family pattern which is indigenous to the Jamaican people and which should not be considered immoral or irresponsible, and also that this opportunity should be seized in order to minister to and assist persons in these unions to participate eventually in a legal marriage contract. Up until 1976, children of common law unions were considered to be illegitimate. The Status of Children Act of that year removed all social and legal disadvantages from the children of visiting and common law unions, and the term illegitimate as it related to children no longer applied. In the eyes of the law, therefore, all children are equal. Yet many churches still discriminate against the offspring of non-marital unions. Such children are baptized separately from children of married unions in a special ceremony in the church building, but not in the sanctuary. The long continuity and coexistence of the different family patterns in the Jamaican society have provided a variety of environments within which families develop and grow. The functioning of family groups within these environments also varies. Such a variety has implications for the attitudes, values, and behaviors of individuals who emerge from these groups to function in the wider society. Children are born helpless, and this infantile helplessness makes training and discipline possible during the nurturing process, which embraces physical care and love, accompanied by the process of molding the child and his or her behavior. Behavior is shaped or modified through interaction with others to conform to the expectations of the family, the social class group, the subcultural group, and the society. This shaping and modification constitute the socialization process, which is the major family function. Through this process, the child attains a personal and a group identity, together with a sense of social continuity. The father in married, common law, and visiting unions is very often either physically or psychologically absent, and so provides for children a role model of father as an itinerant or detached male figure who provides erratic rather than consistent support of any sort to the family. The absent father creates the absent mother, who becomes the breadwinner, often resorting to low-paying jobs requiring her to work long, hard hours and forcing her to leave her children in vulnerable situations where they may be inadequately cared. This woman has to seek mental, emotional, and physical support from sources other than the children's father. Her support sources assist her to cope with childbearing, child-rearing, and associated experiences. The importance of spouse support in areas other than financial is vital and is very often not sufficiently emphasized. But as Jamaican writer Olive Sr. observes, the paradigm of absent father, omniscient mother is central to the ordering and psyche of the Caribbean family. Sometimes the mother is unable or unwilling to be the primary caretaker of the child, who may be abandoned or transferred from one home to another so that the mother can go to work or so that she can establish a new relationship, one in which the child is not wanted. Children who are frequently shifted develop no stable, continuous human relationships, as they are reared in several homes during infancy, childhood, and adolescence. In many of these households and families, there is no blood relationship, and the children are not legally adopted. The experiences of children in these very unstable arrangements differ. Many are fully accepted and integrated into the household and are treated in the same way as our other family members. Others are, however, constantly made aware of their marginal status. Such children spend most of their formative years in a state of anxiety and a lack of security, as they recognize that they are not part of a cohesive family unit, and that at any time, family ties can be interrupted or severed. Although in some cases all their material needs are supplied and they are physically cared, children are deprived of the interaction, love, and attention of parents who they feel have abandoned them. Parents are also unaware of the dangers to which children are exposed when left. The family is also the child's first school, and caregivers the first teachers. The learning process for children begins in the very early years, when children build up from experiences gained through interaction and play with people, objects, animals, places, and events, basic concepts which form the foundation for later learning. Children gradually learn to express themselves using language, and the child initially models the language of the parent or caregiver. There is, however, a lack of verbal interaction in many family environments. Adults do not talk to children and exclude children from their talk. In many homes, language is used almost exclusively to express anger, disappointment, and to reprimand. Children are shut up because parents are too tired or too busy, and the silence and lack of communication among family members is masked by the noise of the television or the radio. The oral reprimand is often accompanied by corporal punishment in the large majority of households. The late D.R.B. Grant noting the way in which children were harshly chastised, particularly in poor families, observed